Here's your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guide.
The fourth area to avoid hidden costs is always avoid surprises and always factor in your costs are going to be higher. So I always jokingly say, whatever initial investment, whatever your costs are for fun, just tack on maybe a 10% premium on everything. Will everything be, have a 10% increase? Maybe, maybe not. Hey, guess what? Your expenses can come in much less. You found something, you're able to not spend as much on marketing and work more off referrals, that kind of deal. Maybe it's a B2B play and you're getting more referrals from them, and maybe there's a percentage or a flat amount you're paying, but it's on business that already comes in. No business is coming in, there's no referral fee paid. So always factor in kind of some variables. The costs will be higher. Brick and mortar, we saw this during COVID and costs and things like that, but raw materials went up. There was maybe less contractors. Some contractors went out of business. Some businesses put their businesses on hold. People were sick. There were just limited manpower, limited raw material, and those raw materials, the cost went up. So sometimes those are things we just can't predict. Interest rates, depending on the direction they're going, obviously that's going to affect if you have a variable rate SBA loan, we want to factor that in. But keep in mind that your numbers could be dead on. Some of them can be increased a little bit and some other areas can be decreased, and maybe you're exactly at what you budgeted. But don't keep it so rigid that if you budget $5,000 a month and you're at 5,100, the business is in trouble. You want that buffer and you want to keep that range. But I talked about this, utilizing things like Profit First and putting together budgets. Marketing is an area where the franchisor may handle turnkey marketing in a call center and you'll have all those fees, but there's always stuff you could do over and beyond. You can launch a podcast, you can do a television, a TV commercial, radio ads, podcast ads have been big. So you can always find ways. So be disciplined. You want to pay yourself potentially a salary, may not be replacing what you were making in the past, and maybe you just keep it to a minimum. But have those buckets, making sure your taxes are paid. There's a profitability bucket in there. There's a bucket there for income. There's a bucket there. We can call it just all-in expenses. Some people break that up into marketing and payroll, what have you, and just have those amounts automatically transferred. That'll keep you to having that budget so that when a vendor comes and says, you know what, we can add for $20,000 a year, we can, I don't know, market and advertise on various podcasts. You can go back and say, we should do it on a monthly. So we'll say $2,000 a month. You can come back and say, all right, well, at our current revenue and spend, we only have $1,000 left over for that. Can it be negotiated? Maybe a little bit less marketing, or is this something you hold off on? So you're making educated guesses here. You're not just spending on everything in sight and then falling short and unable to pay yourself and not have that buffer. Travel costs. Travel to the franchisor. There's going to be ranges there in the initial investment. But what happens if a key employee leaves and you need to pay the cost to send them to, maybe there's a plane ticket, maybe it's just a day trip where they can drive, but additional costs for travel, additional costs for training in the event there's turnover, or you want some retraining, or you want to go with your manager back to training for a refresher, whatever the case may be. So you can always factor things like that and budget accordingly, figure out the costs. And maybe it doesn't work for this month, but maybe you budget it out for Q2 when the numbers are better and you make a decision there. But being crystal clear on your financials is going to be crucial. No one is going to do this for you. The bookkeeping needs to be buttoned up. You need to look at those financials, and you need to really look on a month-to-month basis and say, okay, monthly P&L, so you know exactly the revenues that came in, and then what your profitability was. Are you short every month? Okay. Is it just a revenue fix, or do we have to cut back? Do we have that buffer to be short? Because obviously if you're short, that money's coming out from somewhere. So is it coming out from the loan? Is that covering it? From the loan proceeds? Where is that money coming from? Are you factoring a salary and just not cashing those checks? So definitely get crystal clear. Profit First, I talked about. That is just I wish I'd heard about that in the past. As simple of a concept as it is, there are Profit First professionals out there that'll help you budget, that'll actually meet with you monthly, weekly, whatever the case may be, to set up accounts, automate things, and put together a plan and figure out what are the appropriate percentages for each bucket and each of the allocations, and when do they get updated? Because you may go a little bit too aggressive on certain areas and light on others. So when do they get adjusted? Is it by certain industries, certain revenue numbers? So there's a lot of things to consider.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to learn how to make the transition from corporate to owning your franchise, join Giuseppe on the next episode. You can also follow on all social media platforms and achieve financial and time freedom today.